Hey y'all. Hey, I'm back. I said I was gonna take like a little nap after my last live broadcast, but I didn't get a chance to, so I figured I would just come back on and just read some of the book, chapter 2 in the Divorcing Your Parent book. That's where we left off last time. So I wanted to yeah, I wanted to get back into it and maybe kind of I don't know, read until I fall asleep, I guess. Or read until one of y'all fall asleep. And then we can just talk about what these sections are saying. So we left off. Anyway, hey y'all, it's Dolores, the pastor's daughter. I'm back and I just wanted to start by reading the book, um, Divorcing a Parent and working through that process. Did y'all hear about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock? Y'all, y'all, what? Hear about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock? Did y'all hear about that? Did y'all see it? Lord have mercy. I watched it, y'all. I watched it a couple times. Just a clip. I didn't watch the Oscars or anything. I don't watch that stuff anymore. I don't think I ever was really into the Oscars. I like the music award shows better, obviously because there are lots of good performances and stuff like that. But that's really the only reason why I don't watch that other stuff. I find those to be boring. And it seems like they end up giving awards to people, well, to, yeah, people in movies that I don't really feel like deserved it, or movies and stuff that you just never even heard of. It's like, who was even like judging this stuff? Like, who made these decisions? Because nobody asked me what I thought. But yeah, let me make sure y'all can hear me okay on Facebook. But yeah, let me make sure y'all can hear me okay on Facebook. Don't y'all love how I be singing certain words instead of just saying them? I gotta be extra. That's what my middle name should have been. It should have been Dolores Extra Laster. Did y'all know that was my maiden name? My birth last name, my maiden name is Laster, Laster. And you could probably barely hear the T. I said T, as in Tom, Laster. But I have these Invisaligns in, so of course, my speech is a little slurred. But yeah, so that's my maiden name. And my family is from Detroit, by way of Alabama. And then my mother is from Detroit by way of South Carolina. Yeah, so just a little bit about my family. How are y'all doing? How are you guys doing today? Um, I came on live earlier. Let me just give y'all a quick update. Just a recap of that live earlier. We watched some of today's sermon, which is what's the day? The 27th, I believe. Yeah, March the 27th, 2022. So we watched a little bit of the sermon from today. And of course I was rolling my eyes the entire time. Like I had to catch myself, like, stop rolling your eyes so much. Guys, it's so unprofessional. But that's how I was feeling. So, I just went with how I felt at the moment. And how I felt was like rolling my eyes, because I just felt like it was a bunch of fluff and foolishness. So I didn't take really anything you said too seriously. Oh, hey, Brittany. Girl, I haven't even been on here. So, but you've been working crazy hours. But I missed y'all too. I so did. I missed y'all. That's why I came on early. I was like, I missed y'all, but guess who I don't miss? Y'all can always count on me just to throw a little bit of shade in there. Just a tinge, nothing major. But yeah, I was being just a tinge shady. But yeah, so when we talked earlier, I was just saying that you know, I I'm not listening to him anymore. Like I've d- I pretty much had already stopped, but I would just check in here and there. And when I checked in today, at the same time I checked in today, it was like I had just this epiphany around the whole situation. It's just like I am over it, like over like watching him. Obviously, I'm still writing about my experience, so I'm still talking about my father. But as far as like just actively, watching him or anything like that, it's just, I just feel like he's reprobate. Nothing's going to change. And so I feel like there are people who are redeemable, like there are people who are really making mistakes in relationships and creating toxic environments that they can stop, and if they are made aware and made aware of the consequences, if they continue, then sometimes they'll stop, and if they don't stop, then you know who and what you're dealing with. And so, that's empowering to just, know. It's very empowering to know who you're dealing with. And so, sometimes you have to let up these boundaries, all the time, really. You have to have boundaries, but with certain people, you have certain boundaries and you kind of observe how they are with them. That's a conversation for another day. That's getting into like some deeper stuff. That's, for another time. Um, but yeah, like that's just where I am with the process. I'm just like, I'd rather just talk to people um who can be helped, who want to change and who will take this information and apply it, And so that's why I was saying earlier in my video that I'm going to be doing a series called where I'm addressing other men, like other fathers, just from a perspective of a daughter. And maybe if they hear it from that perspective, then they'll realize, and I just find that it's more men who are doing this, but the same can be applied to women, women who are engaging in these behaviors. Because I know you guys really have dealt with, a female narcissist or, a female who was toxic in your family. And and so I think that the principles can be applied um throughout, but I'm just choosing to focus where I focus, and I just think that people should, apply it wherever it applies in their life. If it applies with, your mother, then that's, where you should take it. Yeah, but if it applies with your father, then that's where it should go. And whatever relationship it is that, it seems like you're kind of bound to them. Y'all notice, like, there's like relationships, it just seems like it's a tie. Even if it's not like a sexual relationship, it's like you're tied to them somehow. And it's like it's going to take like an act of God to make that separation and for you to finally make the decision that that person is no good for you and that you need to end it. So I feel like if we attack these principles from like our closest relationships, like in this situation, I'm talking about my father and our relationship, right? But if you see that I'm making these hard decisions and, taking a hard look at our relationship, and that's my father, then you'll be empowered to do that if it's your friend. You'll be even more empowered to do that if it's, your boyfriend, or you know what I'm saying? Like you'll just fit, you'll find that, okay, wait, she had to do this. She had to cut her own father off. So, so surely, I can cut off this, this guy that I'm dating who is engaging in the same behavior. But some people find it like really hard to break these ties with people that are really toxic. So I'm just thinking that this will probably really help. But where we left off last time, thank you, Brittany. Where we left off last time was at choosing sobriety or abstinence over your parents. So now she's going to get into people who like suffer with alcoholism and stuff like that. So like this is going to be interesting to hear their stories. You remember how the last time we talked about it, we left off with the stories of people who were also, faced with this decision. So I'm just going to go ahead and start reading, and then yeah, we're just going to interject wherever we find some places where we need to. So, choosing sobriety or abstinence over your parents. Recovering alcoholics or addicts frequently have setbacks after seeing their parents, often because their parents themselves are alcoholics or addicts. For this reason, many such adult children choose to stay away from their parents, choosing their sobriety instead. So now she goes into this story about Rachel. Now, Rachel was sharing this story with her Alcoholics Anonymous group, and this is what she said. I went over to my parents' house on Sunday for my sister's birthday party. As usual, everyone was drinking. Even though I felt uncomfortable being around the alcohol, it didn't bother me too much for a while. But then my mother started getting drunk and obnoxious, and I just couldn't stand it. The memories of all my birthday parties when my mother would get sloppy drunk and embarrass me in front of my friends came flooding back. I just couldn't handle my rage. I felt like screaming at her at the top of my lungs and grabbing her and shaking her sober. But instead, I just quietly left, drove my car to the nearest liquor store, went home, and got drunk for the first time in 2 years. Dang. Y'all. Oh my goodness. She was sober for 2 years. And then this interaction with her family, her mother, got her right back. Oh my goodness. Okay, it says Tom had a similar story. My whole family and all their friends drink. Whenever I go over there, they put such a tremendous amount of pressure on me to drink that it's unreal. I feel so uncomfortable with the pressure that I now have to stay away in order to maintain my sobriety. Wow. Okay, these children don't blame their parents for their addictions or for their slips. Instead, they recognize that they simply aren't strong enough yet to be around their parents without risking their sobriety. If this is your situation, you might consider temporarily separating from your parents instead of permanently divorcing him or her. Eventually, as you get stronger and have more time being abstinent, you may find that you can be around your parent again. On the other hand, as you become healthier, you may also become less willing to be around alcohol and drug abusers. Hmm. This is good stuff, you guys. Like this even like lets you know even like these elements of just kind of like trying to stay sober, trying to stay on the right path yourself, can be totally derailed by these toxic environments. Okay, the next part is breaking the codependency habit. Um, a side note, you guys, let's get into a little story time, okay? Because I just had a random thought about, I actually almost skipped over this section because it wasn't, I didn't really feel like it applied to me at the time. But then, of course, I realized, like, I'm not just reading this for me, I'm reading it for other people too. So other people may struggle with this situation, but it just made me think about when I first left my father's church, and one of his smear campaign tactics was to tell people that I'm an alcoholic. And so I did a video. I did a video about this, like because he's a pastor, so he tries to pull that whole like Christians shouldn't drink thing, which I don't agree with, by the way. I don't agree that, Christians shouldn't drink. But I do believe that if it's a problem for you, then you shouldn't. And I do believe that you shouldn't get, you know, drunk. But I mean, that's a conversation for another day, I guess. But um I just thought about like how he did that. And it's almost like the smear campaign of it all. It's so weird, but I can't imagine like if I really actually had a problem with alcohol, like what that may have done to me. The fact that he was spreading that, and it wasn't even true. So imagine like if it was true and I was really struggling and, trying to stay sober and then trying to deal with the toxicity between my father and I, just for him to go around telling people that I'm an alcoholic was pretty like, it was pretty messed up. And then, you just have to ask yourself, I mean, like, what father would do that, would go around, smearing their, like, smearing their own daughter, smearing their own child? And then, like, who would even go around and smear a lie? Like, it's just weird. And then he's a pastor on top of that. So it's like, even if you just sucked as a father, I mean, at the end of the day, you still have decided that you are going to, be this person, and fulfill this role of, someone who is morally and spiritually righteous. But he's really like going around and spreading this about his own daughter. And then it leads you to this point, like if he's doing this to me, then I mean, what like what hope does anybody else have at the church who he feels like crosses him or whatever? It's just like you have to really like think about that and think about what type of person would engage in these behaviors. And a lot of times people think, well, if they don't do that to me, so it's okay. But you have to realize, like, when a person is toxic, they just might have a different tactic that they use on you. But they don't necessarily not victimize people. Everybody is a victim to a person who is like that. They'll victimize or objectify or control or manipulate anybody. Nobody is really exempt. They'll just do it in different ways. They use different tactics on different people. Different people will see a different side of, these narcissists and toxic people. But they're terrible nonetheless. So let's continue. The next section is breaking the codependency habit. Adult children from abusive families often remain neurotically tied to the parent because they have taken on the role of the rescuer or caretaker. Whether the parent is an alcoholic, a drug addict, a battered wife, or a batterer, a compulsive gambler, or a sex addict, they try to change their parent's behavior and thus save her from herself. This behavior, called codependency, is now considered to be a disease itself. Y'all, wow. Okay, Brittany, that's fine. I'm going to keep on going, okay, babe? Just come back when you can, hun bun. And then, um, and then it says here, the broader definition of codependency is given by Sharon oh, Wegscheider Cruz. This looks like a German name. Y'all know I grew up in Germany, right? Just want to let y'all know that. I grew up in Germany. So a lot of my story that, that's in the book, that's my book that's right there on the right-hand side. And then on the left-hand side is the book that I'm reviewing today. So I had to put our books side by side. So you guys know that as soon as we get through reviewing this divorce book, we are going to start with get back right back into my book. But the way I want to approach it is that I want to have an actual divorce proceeding. Like I want to, you guys, I know that this is a different type of idea, okay? But I want to have an actual divorce proceeding. Like I'm serious about this. Like I am divorcing my father and I want to have an actual like divorce proceeding, like a case, like a divorce case. Yeah, I'm so serious. We're gonna do this, okay? Like this is really happening. I'm just trying to warm you guys up to it because it's coming. Okay, so this is the broader definition of codependency by this Miss Sharon lady. Okay, codependency is a specific condition that is characterized by preoccupation and extreme dependency, emotionally, socially, and sometimes physically, on a person or object. Eventually, This dependency on another person becomes a pathological condition that affects the codependent in all other relationships. Okay, let me read it again. Codependency is a specific condition that is characterized by preoccupation and extreme dependence. Now, in parentheses, it says emotionally, socially, and sometimes physically on a person or object. Eventually, this dependence on another person becomes a pathological condition that affects the codependent in all other relationships. Now, I'm going to pause for a second here because, and she might say this moving forward in the book, but I just want to go ahead and just add my 2 cents. Now, when you're talking about, because I mentioned in my book that I wasn't codependent. I wasn't codependent on my father in the sense that I did not enable him. I was not codependent to the in the pathological sense. Let's put it that way. Okay. So like there is a codependency that a child naturally has on a parent because that's who the child depends on for their, for the sustainability, for shelter, clothing, food, etc. Right. So that's a codependency, right? But that's not what this is. Like this is an unhealthy condition. But when you consider that children of like these parents who are very toxic, they start off, in this dependent role, and as they grow, this toxic parent conditions them into pathological, excuse me, you guys, I have these Invisaligns and then they're really defeating me right now. But there's a pathological condition that can come from that relationship and how it initially starts, because you already started off in a dependent role. So there's a codependency that is created with people who are in romantic relationships and stuff like that. But when you see that in a romantic relationship, then if you go back, you'll find that this codependency probably started earlier in life in their first relationships with their parents, and now that condition has affected all their other relationships, romantic relationships with their children, friendships, all of that stuff. Okay, let me keep reading. In addition, codependency is a pattern of dependence on approval from others in an attempt to find safety, self-worth, and identity. Wow. Codependents can become so obsessed with getting others to approve of them that um, in their frustration, they may become workaholics, alcoholics, shopaholics, drug addicts, sex addicts, food abusers, or compulsive gamblers. Y'all see, do you see what can come from this stuff? Wow. Although any caring person feels the pain of a loved one who is suffering, codependents feel an excessive, unhealthy identification with a loved one's pain. Some adult children are more comfortable attending to their parents' problems than their own. This consuming caretaking shields them from facing their own issues. Some adult children are so attached to their parents that the relationship is like an addiction. Yeah. Some adult children are so attached to their parents that the relationship is like an addiction. That's where I feel like my brother, the one who is brainwashed, I feel like that's where he is in this process. He's it's an addiction. His relationship with my father is an addiction. I believe he feels like it's his medication, it's his addiction, it's his life source. It provides him the sustenance he feels he needs. Like I really believe that the relationship he has with my father is his all in all. Like he's addicted. Okay, let me continue reading. Sometimes divorcing a parent may be the only way of making sure that you do not continue to try to rescue or control your parent. That's where I am, you guys. That's why I was saying that I feel like he's dead to me, because it was not because I was really trying to rescue him, but because I was trying to give him so much grace, trying to show him that, like his ways, like to show him the impact of his ways. So, like, even in my earlier videos where I was really, like, really trying to be transparent with, everything that I was suffering with, my skin conditions, my I have a bald spot in my head and everything, you guys. And so I've been trying to, like, really be transparent about that, but it does not impact my father at all. Like that, it does not penetrate, like, any type of empathy or compassion or love or remorse or anything like that. So I had to actually say, like, to myself, I'm like, okay, he's dead to me. Like, I said this, I even said it in the video, like, he's dead to me, because it was like I had to mentally, like, try to kill him off, because I needed to, like, silence him in my head. And I also needed to, like, stop caring, because it's like when you continue to care for a person who doesn't care for you, much less, what I'm saying, they don't care for themselves, much less care for you. But with a narcissistic person, it seems like they have an over abundance of care for themselves. Like they really care about themselves more than anybody. But I even feel like that's a lie. I feel like even the care that they portray or pretend to have for themselves is a lie too. But okay, let me continue reading. So now we're going to get into Donna's situation. It says Donna described a situation that finally caused her to decide to divorce both of her parents. Ooh, she divorced both of them, y'all. Okay. I started realizing that both my mother and father were going down the tubes. Their alcoholism had progressed to such an extent that their behavior was getting more and more bizarre. They were so damaged and so sick that I could not help them. Each time I tried to, I got pulled into the quicksand and started going down with them. I tried to rescue them from some situations they'd gotten themselves into, and I'd end up putting my own life in jeopardy. I'd find myself in such dangerous places in the middle of the night that I'm surprised I'm alive. I finally realized I had to let go. I wasn't helping them, and I certainly wasn't helping myself. I was just avoiding my own problems and getting deeper and deeper into codependency. Wow. She was like a rescue. She was a rescuer. Every time her parents would get into a situation, she was going to rescue them. But at the same time, her own life was just failing. Okay, so now let's get into Audrey's story. So Audrey loved her father very much, and because of this, she didn't want to have to divorce him, but he was making a mess out of his own life and was making her life miserable. Okay, this is her story. I can't tell you how often I felt like a fool for getting sucked into one more of my father's lies. For years, he would come to me with some story about how he needed money for an emergency, to fix his car, so he could get to work, to go to the dentist because he was in such pain, or to pay a bill to avoid collection. And each time I would later find out that he had used the money to buy booze and go on a binge. It seemed like I just never learned. Even though I couldn't trust him, I always worried that maybe this time he was telling me the truth. And I knew I couldn't live with myself if he really needed the money. Things got so bad that he started breaking into my house and stealing from me. Or I would come home to find him passed out in my front yard or asleep in his car in my driveway. Y'all, oh my gosh. I felt so ashamed for my neighbors to see my father like that, and so enraged with him for putting me in such a position. His health was rapidly declining, but he refused to go to Alcoholics Anonymous or enter a treatment program. Even when the doctor told him that if he didn't stop drinking, his liver would fail completely and he would die. I felt sorry for him because I knew he had a disease. But since he refused to get help, I knew it would be only a matter of time before he bottomed out completely. In the meantime, I decided I couldn't allow him to take me with him on his destructive journey. I wrote him a letter telling him that I didn't want to see him anymore and wanted him to stay away from my house. He kept calling and coming over, so I finally filed a restraining order with the police to keep him away. I haven't heard from him since he was notified of the restraining order, and I don't know how he is doing. I worry about him sometimes, but mostly I have just given him up to the alcohol. Oh my gosh. That's how I feel like. I feel like I've just given my father up to his reprobate mind. You know, like it's just nothing more you can do with them. It's like they just put you in this position where it's like it's just nothing more. And really, I think sometimes we put ourselves in that position too because we're knowing, we know um that there's no hope for them. I've known for a while, and but I just still kept trying. I just felt like I can't give up on him. He's my father, for goodness sake. Um, if I give up on him, then like who does he have? And but that's his problem. That's his problem to fix. Okay, now the next part is, let me see. I thought it was something I wanted to say. Nope. Okay, let me keep going. When it's either you or them, that's the next section. As I've revealed, it was necessary for me to divorce my mother in order to save my health. Many other adult children have had to divorce their parents in order to literally save their lives. When Lorena first went into therapy, her therapist took one look at her and asked, "Who is killing you?" Oh, Lord. That's deep. Who is killing you? Oh, I need to write that down, y'all, because that might be a whole that might be a whole live stream that we need to get into. Who is killing you? Let me mark that. That's good. That's really good. Um, Child. And that's a powerful question because then it makes you like it doesn't even like you don't even have a chance to say, well, I'm not dying, or I don't feel like I'm dying like the person. She didn't ask that question. She didn't ask, you know how are you feeling. She didn't ask, do you feel like you're dying, how is your health. She didn't ask any of that. She was like, who is killing you? Like that is, y'all, that's a powerful question. Okay, let me continue. As usual, as unusual as this question was, it turned out to be very appropriate because Lorena's spirit was indeed slowly being killed by her mother's cruelty. Her mother deliberately made Lorena doubt her abilities and managed to take away or sabotage everything positive in Lorena's life. Although she would tell Lorena to her face that she was her favorite child, she would complain about her behind her back. Y'all, this was totally me. After turning other people against her. Whenever Lorena, an extremely attractive young woman, would get attention from her for her beauty, her mother would appear to be proud for her in front of other people, but would cut her down when they were alone together. While she would bask in the attention she got for being Lorena's mother, she was extremely jealous of Lorena and was constantly competing with her. Y'all, like that is one of the worst feelings, is like for your parent to be competing with you. Oh, that is a terrible thing because it's just like, well, like how? Like, why are you competing with me? Like when you are responsible for even creating me, when you've had such an impact in creating me, how can you be jealous of me? It's just weird. Okay. In a clear case of the pot calling the kettle black, Lorena's mother once went after her with a butcher knife because she imagined Lorena was thinking negative thoughts about her. This occurred when Lorena was 25, during one of the rare times when the entire family got together. They were all having dinner and things had seemed to be going just fine, when out of the blue, Lorena's mother glared at her and said, "I heard that. I heard what you just said about me." Lorena, stunned, said, "I didn't say anything." But her mother insisted, "Oh, yes, you did. I heard you." At which point she stormed out of the room, returning in a few moments with a butcher knife. She started towards Lorena in a rage, and she would have stabbed her had she not been restrained by several family members. That was the last straw, as far as Lorena was concerned, and that was the last time she ever saw her mother. Yeah, my father has pulled a gun on every last one of his kids and his wife. Like, yeah, I'm so serious. Like, I be chuckling about this stuff sometimes, but like, it was no chuckling matter when it happened. That's for sure. You know, and it's just like people have to realize like that there is a lot of violence and stuff that happens in these toxic families and stuff, and these people are really like crazy. Okay. This next part is when your parent won't accept your lifestyle. Okay. So I think this is going to be talking about people who are, coming out as homosexual, bisexual, or whatever. Um, so let's get into this story. Okay. Even though Andrew had come out to his mother 3 years ago, she could not accept the fact that he was gay. Even after she had agreed to go on a few meetings of the support group Mothers of Gays, she remained in denial, still talking to Andrew as though he were straight, while he was always in, while he was always invited to family gatherings. His lover of 5 years, Tom, was never invited. Holidays were especially difficult for Andrew since if he wanted to be with his parents, he couldn't be with Tom. This went on for several years until finally Andrew decided he couldn't stand it any longer. When his mother invited him for Thanksgiving, he asked whether Tom could come too. His mother responded, "Oh no, that wouldn't be appropriate at all." When Andrew asked why not, he was told that Thanksgiving was for family only. But what about my brother's wives? Why are they allowed to come? Of course, their wives can come. They're part of the family now, aren't they? Well, what about Leonard's girlfriend? Why why is he always allowed to bring whomever he is seeing? That silenced his mother for a moment. Then Andrew tried to explain. "Listen, mother, I've been with Tom for 5 years now. It's as if we are married." Finally, his mother blurted out, "It isn't the same, and you can never convince me that it is. It disgusts me to think of you with a man, and no matter how much you try to convince me that it's normal and natural, I will never believe it." Andrew's feelings were very hurt. He had not realized his mother felt this way. This was now He was now aware of the fact that she not only would not accept his relationship with Tom, but that she would never accept him. Sadly, Andrew had to divorce his mother in order to stand up for his belief that he was not a perverted person. Oh, wow. Okay, let's get into the next section. Needing to separate. Adult children from dysfunctional families have a difficult time growing up and separating from their parents. This is true for several reasons. The most significant of which is that the most significant of which is that they often continue to try to get the love, attention, and approval that they never received as children. This drive to get unmet needs met is extremely strong, and it can sometimes overshadow all other needs. Abused children will put up with almost any behavior from a parent in order to get some attention. They are quick to forgive and forget as soon as the parent gives them any positive attention. Even children who are so severely beaten that social service agencies are called in will frequently deny any charges of abuse on a parent's part as a way of protecting the parent. They do this because they are afraid of the parent and of losing the parent, and because they want to please the parent. Yep, I could totally relate. This is definitely like going on within, my family even still. And all of us are, um, yeah, I think my youngest brother just turned 40, right? Let me see, what am I, 41, about to be 42. So yeah, he just turned 40, um, last week. So all of us are in our 40s, y'all. And we still have like this strong, like some of us still have this, like this stronghold. And he's not one of them, neither am I. But, a couple of my older brothers are. So my two older brothers are. And then I have one who's not. Okay, so where am I? Um, there are certain emotional building blocks, nurturing, caring and support that all children need to get from their parents in order to grow up to be independent individuals. If they were deprived of some of these, if you were deprived of some of these, you probably feel incomplete and inadequate. Unfortunately, this need to get now what you missed out on then keeps you tied to your parents in a very negative way. You may feel lacking and incomplete and want your parents to finish up the job they started. This unhealthy tie can sometimes be broken only by divorce. Wow. It's crazy, but it's true. We still sometimes be longing for that and wanting that, and it's just not gonna happen. It's just not. Let's see what else. What else I want to read? Yeah, this chapter still has like I don't know, it's like 7 pages to it or something like that. I feel like I want to finish it though. I feel like I want to finish it tonight, and then we go right on into chapter 3 tomorrow. Because we need to hear these stories, but it looks like there's an exercise at the beginning. I mean, at the end that I want to just touch on, and then that might be a good place to stop. Yeah, let's just keep on going. Let's thug it out. Thug it out. Okay, so where are we? This is a quote that she put. It's about time I grew up, and that's the title of the next um section. You may ask, can the adult child just accept the fact that he needs to grow up without involving the parent? Why is divorce necessary? To answer this question, it is necessary to understand some basics of child development. This is going to be a real key part right here, you guys. Really key part right here. The bond between a mother and a child who is loved, nurtured, and protected is extremely strong and deep. Not all mothers are able to establish emotional bonds with their children. Ironically, these children seem to attach themselves even more strongly to their mothers than do children who are nurtured. Without this bonding and the accompanying nurturing and unconditional love, the child feels incomplete. He feels that if only he could get his mother's love, he could grow up and become an independent adult. Now, remember you guys, these are already adults, right? But this is the mindset because you kind of get stuck in that childlike, mindset with certain things. So let me just read that again. Without this bonding and the accompanying nurturing and unconditional love, the child feels incomplete. He feels that if only he could get his mother's love, he could grow up and become an independent adult. Wow. And so when you think about that, you can almost see, like, if you think about this progression of things, you can see that this repeated denial of that, when a person is really seeking that love, to continue to be denied of it, can really push a person to rage. They can really become a very, very angry person. And I think that we're seeing a lot of that in, the anger that we see in people these days. And it's not usually the person that they're directing their anger at that they're actually angry with. That actually is the root cause of it. Sometimes it's these childhood relationships, these toxic relationships that are still affecting us even in our 40s and 50s and 60s and stuff. We don't really grow out of them unless we purposely, do the work to grow. And this is like reparenting and inner child work and stuff like that. We'll get into that stuff later on, as we progress throughout this, um, as the channel progresses and stuff like that, we'll get into like some of those different counseling techniques. But these are, a lot of the things that people have to do. They have to be in therapy for years, to really kind of grab hold of this stuff and really begin to get over it. Okay, I'm going to continue reading. The sad part of this is that the adult child obviously cannot go back and get what he didn't get as a child. It is too late. He would just have to grow up without it. Oftentimes, this growing up occurs only when there is a permanent separation from the mother. Wow. When I met Sally, she wore frilly dresses and had ribbons in her hair, and her high pitched little girl voice belied, mm, I don't even know what that word means, but I'm going to skip it. Her almost 29 years. Even though she lived on her own, Sally was still tied to her mother. She spoke with her mother almost daily and went over to her house at least 3 times a week. As a child, she had compensated for her mother's neglect and lack of affection by taking on the role of a good little girl, a role she continued to play even as an adult. She was constantly trying to please her mother by running her errands and cooking meals for her, taking her to the movies and cleaning her house. But her mother complained about the way Sally cooked, never liked the movies they saw, and focused on all that Sally hadn't done. Sally was so busy trying to please her mother that she didn't have time for her own life. She stayed in a dead end job because she didn't have time to go to night school to better herself. After all, she said to me, how can I go to school when I have to take mother to her bingo game on Monday and run errands for her the rest of the week. There just there just aren't enough hours in the day. She also didn't have time to date. Once in a while, I have a date on a Saturday night, but my weekends are so full of things I have to do with mother that I can't go out very often. Once I start dating a man steadily, he seems to want a lot of my time and I just don't have it. Okay. So basically, y'all, she's spending all her time with her mama. Okay. So besides finally becoming aware that she was stuck in the good little girl role, Sally also realized that her self-esteem was constantly being undermined by her mother, by a mother she would never be able to please. I'm sorry, you guys. I must be getting tired. Okay, let me start over. Besides finally becoming aware that she was stuck in the little girl role, Sally also realized that her self esteem was constantly being undermined by a mother she would never be able to please, no matter what she did. She tried cutting back and not doing as much for her mother, but this caused her mother to become more critical and even belligerent. Time after time, Sally tried to explain to her mother why she was spending less time with her, but her mother refused to understand. This put Sally in a terrible bind. She longed very much for her mother's approval and love, but she knew that it was time to grow up. No matter how hard she tried, whenever she was around her mother, she slipped back into the role of the good little girl. And she would then feel terrible about herself afterward. Eventually, Sally came to the painful conclusion that she must stop seeing her mother in order to grow up. Y'all, I feel like this, like that's how it was my father. But see, like when I had to really pull back from him, it's because I was getting sick. I was like really sick. And even still, he was still like doing the same stuff to me. And you guys know, like back then, I had lost like a ton of weight because I couldn't really eat anything. I couldn't hold any food in or keep any food down or whatever. It was bad. I was in a lot of pain. But and then I started missing a lot of church. And so then that's when my father started getting, a little bit upset with me and started like being started trying to say little slick stuff and, just like stuff like that. I was noticing he was talking about my weight. It was like, even though he knows that I'm sick, and he even was saying that I was going to gain the weight back. He was like, you're going to, he was like, you fat, like little stuff like that. But like, and then he would say like, but he would like put it with a compliment. He would say like, that was like pretty still or something. You know what I'm saying? Like it would still be like shade though. Um, but I felt like the same way, but I was really just getting sick and I just couldn't. It was like my body made it impossible for me to do what he wanted, And I just, because I was so sick, I started seeing a lot of stuff that I, just really didn't see before. Okay. So I'm gonna continue with Sally's story. Sally was Sally has been very happy with her decision. She is now enrolled in ninth school and is studying to be a legal secretary, and she has been dating the same man for 5 months. Her little girl voice has matured, and the frilly, childish dresses she used to wear have been replaced by more appropriate adult clothes. Christina Crawford's book, Mommy Dearest, gave us a good example of a child who thought she could win her mother's love in spite of her mother's continued cruelty. Christina explained that she should have learned to stop trying to gain her mother's love and approval, since each attempt was met with rejection and cruelty. But her need for the love she had never received as a child was such a strong motivating force that she continued to seek her mother's approval right up until her mother died. Even then, her mother got the last word, leaving nothing to Christina in her will. Had she been able to divorce herself from her mother earlier on, she could have spared herself years of agony and pain, since her mother was incapable of loving her. No matter how fruitful these attempts might be, some adult children continue to look for any sign of love and approval on a parent's part, even when there are never any such signs. They continue to harbor the false hope that someday the parent will change, thinking that perhaps if they wait long enough, change enough, or forgive enough, they will receive the love they crave. No matter how many times they are rejected or how hard they try to give up the false hope, some adult children continue to try even spite of themselves, even in spite of themselves, excuse me. Some adult children finally realize that divorcing the parent is the only way out of such a very negative pattern, one that keeps them stuck where they are and prevents any further growth. This was the case with Erin. Erin had been treated poorly by her mother her entire life. Her mother made it clear that she preferred Erin's sister Carol, who was prettier and more popular. But Erin never gave up trying to win her mother's love, which was especially important to her because her father had died when she was 6 years old. She tried hard in school, never got into any trouble, and helped out around the house, things Carol didn't do. When Carol graduated from high school, she was given a new car. When Erin graduated, she got a new dress. When her sister got married, her mother paid for the wedding. When Erin got married, her mother told her she didn't have enough money. Erin tried to ignore her mother's obvious preference. She continued to always be the one who would listen to her mother's problems and would run errands and do other favors for her. It wasn't until Erin's first child was born prematurely that she was finally able to face the fact that her mother did not care about her. Her mother, who had doted on her sister's 3 children, only came to the hospital once when Erin's baby was first born. Although the child was in intensive care for several weeks, Erin did not see or hear from her mother during that time. When she finally confronted her mother about it, her mother told her that she had been too busy babysitting Carol's children to come to the hospital. For Erin, this was the final blow. I was always just an obligation to her anyway. She told me. She didn't even notice I had stopped speaking to her until she hadn't heard from me in over 3 months. Then she called to find out how I was, as if nothing had happened. When I was cold to her, she acted insulted and has not called back. I am so unimportant to her that she hasn't even tried to find out what's wrong. Yeah. It's crazy because even like when I left the church and that last phone call that my father and I had, the one that's featured in my book Provoked, um, he never even asked. He never even said like, "Well, why are you leaving?" or "What can I do?" or "How can I fix this? How can I make this?" It was never any of those things. Um, he never asked me, like what's wrong, like nothing like that. Um, First of all, because he knew what was wrong and he didn't care to change it. You know, that's first of all, and second of all. And so why ask the question when, there's nothing you're going to do about it, when really your sole focus is just to manipulate me so that you can get me back to doing what you want me to do instead of actually creating the environment that would just solve that problem. Then you wouldn't have to, manipulate and control and coerce and all of that. It's like, to me, like these people choose ways of dealing with things that they don't have to. It's like they really have to go out of their way to make up lies and to really like manipulate you and stuff like that when they just don't have to. And I think that that's what makes me mad more than anything, is that not only is this stuff very damaging and they know it's damaging, but they just don't even have to do it. They simply choose to. And so when you think about it like that, then it's like you have to simply choose to look out for yourself and protect yourself, and love yourself enough to separate yourself from these people. Okay, let's continue. So now she's going to get into sexual abuse. So the title of this section is called The Special Problems of Sexual Abuse. A child who is introduced to adult sexuality at an early age before he or she is emotionally or physiologically equipped to handle it will likely also have problems with separation and self-identity. As an incestuous father, for example, assaults his daughter's separateness by saying, in effect, "You are mine to do with as I will." At the same time, he is also forcing on her um, a premature separateness from parental nurturing and protection by also saying, "You are not my daughter, you are my lover." Growing up and separating is difficult enough. When there is sexual abuse, the process is confounded and becomes much harder. Thus, connectedness becomes fusion, intimacy becomes intrusion. Wow. Wow, that's deep. That's really deep, y'all. I don't even know why I don't have a pen over here. I can highlight this stuff. Hold on, yeah, I gotta get an ink pen because, like, this is some really good stuff that I'm gonna have to, you know, keep note of. When I told y'all, like, this book is so good, it's just a good book because I really feel like in a lot of ways it's telling a lot of my story, my brother's story, um, a lot of issues that a lot of us who have complex um, PTSD, childhood trauma, all that type of stuff, um, we can really relate to this stuff, y'all. Sadly, sadly, we can relate. Let me see. Okay, what did she say? Okay, so she said here that connectedness becomes fusion, intimacy becomes intrusion. Connectedness becomes fusion. Intimacy becomes intrusion. Wow. Okay. Sexual abuse sometimes causes a child to merge psychologically with the parent in a very unhealthy way. Some victims have felt married to their fathers or mothers because of the sexual merging. If the father has intercourse with the child, there is also a physical merging of their two bodies, further increasing the difficulty of separation. See, that's like a a soul tie too, a sexual soul tie. During the act of intercourse, there is an emotional and psychological merging and meshing that occurs. This illusionary feeling of oneness while being a romantic while being a romantic notion with adult lovers can cause a child to regress back to earlier stages of development when oneness was a more natural experience with parents. Wow. So there is a oneness that you have like as a child, um but you and I forget what age it is that you kind of like you separate from your parent, but I want to say it's really early on, like before 5 years for sure. Before 5 years old. Um, but then so then when you think about if you're like regressing back to that stage, then you're regressing to like like a toddler. Y'all, that's just like that's cruel. Like that's really cruel treatment. Um, and I still think that some people don't really realize all the effects of their behavior. And so I feel like some situations are redeemable, where people can really like reconcile these issues. I don't know about this no sexual type of problems though. Like I don't think that that's redeemable, you guys. But, y'all would have to tell me about your experiences and, tell me what you think about if your situation is redeemable. But I don't feel like if a person was sexually abusive that they are redeemable and that that relationship can be reconciled. I just don't believe that. Okay. So let's continue to read it. So she's telling about Carol's story right now, right? So Carol, who still lived at home with her parents, was 22 when she initially entered therapy because of her non-existent social life. I just don't understand it, she said. I can find myself attracted to a man, but when he asks me out, all I can do is think of my dad and how he'd feel. I would feel, I don't know, kind of disloyal to my dad. After many months of therapy, Carol was finally able to tell me about her father's sexual abuse, which had begun when she was 13. It took her much longer to realize why she why it was that she felt so unwilling to date. Finally, she was able to make the connection. No wonder I feel guilty about dating other men. I feel married to my father. She became aware that ever since her father had started having intercourse with her, she had thought of him as her husband. He treated her like his wife in many other ways as well, confiding in her about his problems at work, having her iron his shirts and make him coffee. Carolyn began to realize that she was tied to her father in a very unhealthy way. Like, y'all, that's sick. Okay. It wasn't long after that it wasn't long afterward that she decided to move out of her parents' house. Her father became very upset and and in a heated argument he accused her of wanting to move out so she could have affairs with men. Y'all, what the y'all. Enraged by her new awareness of how his sexual abuse had damaged her, she yelled at him, "Yes, Dad, I do want to have sex with other men. Did you think you were going to be the only man who ever had me?" At this point, his father struck her father. I think that's a typo. At this point, her father struck her across the face. Carolyn moved out that night. Y'all, he slapped her. He slapped her for that. Oh Lord Jesus. Oh, okay. She has only seen her father once since then, at her mother's funeral 3 years ago. After her father had begun to sexually abuse her, Carolyn withdrew from her mother, both out of guilt and because she felt competitive with her. Because she had strongly suspected that her mother knew about the incest all along, and because she had stayed married to Carolyn's father even after Carolyn told her of the sexual abuse. Carolyn had never became close to her mother, but she never stopped loving her mother, and her death hit her hard. Um, when she saw her father at the funeral, all her feelings of anger toward him melted away, and she reached up to hug him. As he hugged her, he drew his body close to hers in a very sexual way. Appalled, she pushed him away and said, "I see you haven't changed." Yeah, 'cause they don't change. Girl, they don't change. And then he said, "Yeah, and you haven't either," he snarled. "I hear you're still a whore." Oh, oh, yeah. Oh, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And he had the nerve to call her a whore. Y'all. What the heck? Okay. Devastated. Of course I'm devastated just reading this. Devastated, Carol walked away from him once and for all. As in Carol's case, sexual abuse by a father or a stepfather frequently causes the female child to feel alienated and estranged from her mother. The child may feel guilty or she may be afraid that her mother will reject her. Often, the father has deliberately turned the child against her mother in order to ensure her silence and her loyalty to him. Excuse me, you guys. Excuse me. Um, the sexual abuse thus causes a premature, unnatural pseudo separation of the daughter from her mother. Y'all, this is this is crazy. Okay, you gotta go, Brittany. Aw, that's so sweet. That's cool. And I totally understand. I enjoy when you're on too. Yeah, this is wild. Have a good night, boo. You said you're still working, so have a good rest of the night at work if you're still working. Love y'all. Okay, so let me continue going because we're almost to the end. Well, we got like 5 more pages, 4 more pages or something like that. 5 more pages, something like that, guys. I don't know. Let's just not count. Let's not worry about the count, okay? Okay, where was I? Okay. When Jennifer's father started sexually abusing her, um, when she was 7 years old, she immediately felt more distant from her mother. Confused by Jennifer's sudden distance, her mother tried to reach out to her, but to no avail. Jennifer's father had told the child that he was unhappy because her mother never paid enough attention to him. He told her he was going to teach her to be a good wife so that she wouldn't ignore her husband's sexual needs the way her mother did. Y'all, if he don't, oh Jesus. So he told her when she was 7 years old, your mother isn't taking care of me. I'm not happy because your mother isn't taking care of me. I need you to take care of me. I'm gonna teach you, y'all. Ugh. Okay, let me keep going. Jennifer felt that if her mother had been a good wife, she wouldn't have to do these things with her father. So she also felt guilty and ashamed about what her father was doing to her. And she was afraid her mother would not love her if she found out. As the years went by, she became more and more distant from her mother. Mm-mm-mm. Because of the sexual abuse by her father, Jennifer was deprived of the mothering and nurturing she needed as a child. Now, at 34, she is still neurotically attached to her mother. They are constantly fighting. Jennifer had told her mother about the sexual abuse she endured for years, and she blames her for not stopping it and for abdicating her responsibilities as a wife. Her mother feels so excuse me, her mother feels so accused by Jennifer that she is unwilling to give her the nurturing Jennifer feels she needs. They are both stuck. So okay, so Jennifer's mad at her mom for what happened. Her mom is mad at her for accusing her of what happened. So they're both like stuck in this where they can't really make that connection. They can't figure that thing out. Alexa, turn the main light on. Okay. So she can't. I hope I didn't activate anybody else's devices. I'm sorry if I did. Anyway, because sometimes when I'm on the phone with my mother and I have her on speakerphone, if she tells her Alexa to do something, then mine will do it too. It's just crazy. But anyway, so let me go. Jennifer. Okay, let me continue reading. Jennifer's mother does feel guilty for not having protected her daughter better, although she denies this to Jennifer. So she sometimes tolerates abusive behavior from Jennifer. Jennifer is caught between her desire to get the nurturing from her mother she never got and her anger towards her for not having been a better mother. If there is a chance for this relationship, Jennifer will need to accept the fact that she will never get from her mother what she needed as a child, and she will have to stop blaming her mother for her father's actions. For her part, Jennifer's mother will need to try to get past her guilt feelings and to be as loving a mother as she can now. Otherwise, the two may need to separate temporarily in order to get unstuck and to gain some empathy for each other's position. Y'all, this leads me to, kind of talking about my mother a little bit because, I felt the same way. You guys know that I don't talk about my mother a lot right now because she is healing. She is, going through her healing journey and doing the work that's necessary for her to um redeem herself within what she did within their relationship, because there was enabling that was going on. There was like, she believed that she was really helping my father to be better, and he was better than he was, when they first met, but he was still like he pretty much just changed his ways of like how he was doing the bad things he was doing. You know what I'm saying? It just was like he's not really a better person. He's not really a better man. But I felt that my mother was responsible for a lot for a few things. Well, for some of the things that my father did because she stayed and because her presence enabled his behavior. Because she would clean up his messes, thinking that she was being a good wife. She allowed things to happen that she has answered for and is continuing to answer for. But she is doing the work. And so, I think I had even mentioned before that I had debated if if it was necessary for me to do a separation or something from my mother. And I um thought that I would as a result of leaving the church and, cutting my father off. I thought that I was coming to terms with the fact that I would probably have to cut my mother off too because she's still married to him and because, it was always going to be that tension and I just really didn't want to get sucked back in. My mother was always a driving force for people to be around my father because she is such a good woman. So because she's such a good woman, it overshadowed um him not being a good man. So, I debated if that was necessary, but my mother, like I said, has been doing the work, you guys, like doing the work. I mean, she is dedicated to being a healthier mother, healthier grandmother, and like she's amazing. But my father, on the other hand, he does not have any desire to do the work that is necessary to heal these relationships. Um, so okay, let me keep going. Oh, y'all. Oh, it's getting to a part. This is the part right here. The title of this section is "They Won't Let Me Go." Okay, look, this is what I can relate to. When you guys read my book, this you'll be like, okay, yes, he wouldn't let her go. Like the very first thing my father said to me is, I can't let you go. Your mother told me what you said, that I was trying to leave the church, and he was like, I can't let you go. And I was just like, you can't, what you mean you can't let me go? Like, what is it? What you mean? You know? Like, I wasn't asking for permission. I'm telling you, like, I'm going. Like, this is a done deal now. But he felt like he actually had the authority to tell me that I can't leave. And so let's get into it with this section of the book. Some parents simply would not allow their adult children to separate in a healthy way. Parents hold on to their children by encouraging them to remain children, making them feel incompetent and inadequate, giving them too much so they don't have to work to get the things on their own, accusing them of being, causing them to be too fearful, becoming sexually involved with their children, criticizing all of the children's friends and dates, and thereby making them think that no one is good enough, and being too good a mother, not allowing children to feel any frustration and thus learn ways to solve problems on their own. This, these, like these bullet points that she mentioned are okay, first of all, they're everything they're everything that happened to me in my book. Like, you guys, this is like everything that happened to me in my book. In that conversation, my father did every last one of these tactics to me. So children hold on to their parents by, I'm gonna read the list again: encouraging them to remain children. I can't even tell you how many times my father was like, "You're my baby. You're my, you're my." He kept putting me in this position of a child. Even when you're 105, you're still gonna be my baby. Like trying to constantly put me in a child's role, to where like where he'd have to make the decisions for me, that I couldn't make decisions for myself or what was best for me. Then he would um then this next bullet point is making them feel incompetent and inadequate. And the way that he did this was he tried to use spirituality too. He tried to say that, well, he said that, like basically I would be possessed by demons. He said that I didn't have the Holy Ghost, and that because of that, I would go to other churches and be possessed. And um, then he said that the devil was trying to kill me. He said that, and then he called into question all of my relationships, the divorces that I had in the past, and all of that stuff, because he was trying to make me question my decision making abilities, because you've messed up. And basically, he said that you've messed up, in the past, and I've told you this and that, this is you messing up again, and so now I'm telling you, you can't leave. And so that was what his tactic was, to try to tell me that I cannot leave him. I cannot separate. He would not allow me to. You see what I'm saying? And then he tried to make it like it's an ultimatum type of thing, where I lose access and lose the rest of my family, lose my church family, and lose all of that connection because of him, because I didn't want him, to be my pastor, because I didn't want it to be at that church. Then the next bullet point is giving them too much so they don't have to work to get things on their own. That's making them dependent on, that's an adult, that's a parent making their adult child dependent on them. Like, I've never had to go out and do this before. My father always does it, and my mother always does this for me. I don't know how to do this. And it's almost to the point um where they make their children feel incapable of doing things on their own, like they need that parent. The next bullet is causing them to be too fearful. So trying to make them afraid. Like, he really tried to make me afraid of even like going to visit other churches, of, going out, of, he tried to make me fearful even the relationship with my husband and I. It was just like he just tried every single tactic that is listed in this book, you guys. Except for that, becoming sexually involved with their children. Mm-mm. Criticizing all of their children's friends and dates, and thereby making them think that no one is good enough. And see, he would even do this with other pastors in the church. He did that with other members that were even on the praise team with me. Like, I don't care if these people are there. The person that I need is you. So nobody can do this job but you, you know? See, the thing is that you guys have to be aware of how these tactics play out. And that's what I'm here to show you is that these tactics, like she lists these tactics, but unless you can really see how it plays out, you don't really know how to identify it when it comes into your life, when it's being used on you, you know? And then the next bullet point is being too good, you know, too good a mother. And she puts too good in parentheses. So it's like you're too good because that's what that person is thinking, but they're not actually being too good. That's not good at all to be a parent that allows, by not allowing their children to feel any frustration, um, and not allowing their children to solve their own problems. And when you come to your child's rescue too easily, too quickly, rather, then or when you don't allow your child to even um, handle their own situations, you know, with empowering them to handle it, you know, not saying that you just abandon them and then you just like, well, just go out there and make your own decisions, because then that's another form of abusive behavior. But sometimes it gets to the point where um, they step in and they don't empower their children with tactics, with ways of handling, with best practices, with, you know, stories of maybe when they dealt with that situation before. Instead, they immediately come to their child's rescue. Like this reminds me of, like, let's say the parent who is like, you remember when um it used to be where people would not get, like, if you didn't win, you didn't get an award. You know, it kind of puts me in the mind of that, you know. But then people's feelings would get hurt and they just feel like, okay, well, everybody gets an award, you know? And it's just like, but that's not really like the point of this. The point is that it's a competition that the most qualified or the better qualified should be recognized. It's just, I don't know. Maybe that's a bad example, but it just puts me in the mind of that, of just like, um, never really allowing their child to gain that strength, you know, that comes from solving their own problems and having a problem to solve, you know? So maybe that's a conversation for another time. But anyway, let me continue reading. Why do parents try to hold on to their children? There are three primary reasons. Separation reduces their power and control. Separation makes them less needed, less important. And they are afraid for their children. So, three primary reasons. One, separation reduces their power and control. That was my father's thing. Number two, separation makes them feel less needed and less important, and that was his thing too. And three is they are afraid for their children. I don't think my father was afraid for his children. I think he's afraid of his children, because I think he's done so much damage that he feels like if he can keep us close, then he could keep us from realizing what he's done. You know, sometimes it's that distance, that time and that distance that allows you to get clarity about the situation. And when a person keeps you from having that distance and clarity, like let's say you're in a heated discussion with a person and you say, hey, let me just go and take a walk. You know, let me go take a walk around the block. Let me gain some clarity about this. Let me calm down. Let me, you know, let me do what I need to do to be able to come back and really communicate what I need to communicate. But then you have a person who won't let you. They're like, no, you're gonna stay here, you're gonna deal with this. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, you're gonna stay here, you're gonna deal with this right now. Um, but their intention is not because this is a pressing issue, you know. They're not, you know, intending to resolve something because it's pressing, but they're resolving it because, but they're pressing it because they don't want you to go away and have the clarity of the situation. They don't want you to be able to say, whoa, okay, hold on, let me process what she just said, let me process what he just said, and make sense of this whole situation so I can, you know, come back and have an informed decision, or, you know, an effective way of communicating what I think. They don't want you to do that. They want you to be unhinged and unprepared and unknowledgeable. Unknowledgeable. Is unknowledgeable a word? I don't know. It is right now. unknowledgeable. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. It's late. Okay. Okay, let me get into this next part. Okay, Darla's friend Crystal didn't understand her. Darla's parents bought her a condominium and they sent her money anytime she needs it. But she complains because they call her on the phone too much. My parents don't ever call me, much less buy me condos or give me money. She seems so ungrateful. No one no one looking in from the outside could understand how tortured Darla was um about her relationship with her parents. From all outward appearances, they certainly seemed to be extremely concerned about her. But Darla was being smothered by them. They dictated where she lived, when she should buy clothes, where she should go on vacations, and where she worked. They came over to her house unannounced. Worst of all, they had taken her son away from her. Oh, oh, Lord. When Dolly was 20 years old, she had become pregnant, but her boyfriend had refused to marry her. Already living on her own, she had decided to keep the baby. With her parents' encouragement, she had moved back home to so her parents could babysit while she worked. Darla had felt very lucky that her parents would help her like this until she began to realize that they were treating her baby as if he were theirs. It bothered her to see them doting over him, but she told herself that she was just jealous because they had never given her that kind of attention. Eventually, she realized that her son saw her more as a big sister than his mother. Her parents did so much for him and spent so much time with him that she just couldn't compete. Dollar moved out on her own again when her son was 10. But even then, her parents often convinced her to leave her son at their house for the weekend, reasoning with her that she should be able to have a social life. It wasn't until Darla entered therapy at 43 that she came to realize how much she resented her parents for having taken her son from her. Her parents were supporting her son while she went to college, and he was very close to them, calling them far more than he ever called her. She regretted very much not having a closer relationship with her son. But even more than this, the fact that her parents now controlled him just as they had always controlled her. Since her parents held the purse strings, her son felt that he had no he had to consult with them about which school to go to and which classes he was going to take. Darla's parents had created a Tinder trap for her son, just as they had for her, maintaining control over him through his finances, making him comfortable but dependent. Like Darla's parents, um, like Darla's parents, many parents use money as a means of emotional blackmail, controlling and manipulating their children long after they leave the nest. Some dangle the carrot of an inheritance when they die to intimidate and control their children while they are still alive. Yeah, my father my father did this. I was like, I don't care. I don't want it. Like I don't care about anything that you have. I don't care if you leave me absolutely nothing. I don't care. I don't want it. I just want peace. And sometimes it even like it gets to that point where it's like, have y'all ever seen like a woman walk away from everything? Like she just leaves with the clothes on her back. She's just like, look, take it. Like you can take it, you can have it. I don't care. I just want peace. All the material stuff can be replaced. And that's how, sometimes you end up feeling in these relationships is like because they controlled you by providing or they controlled you, you know, and because they provided in this one area, they feel like they can control every area of your life. And then even push you in a position to where it's like you'll have to go to them, and then when you have to go to them, then you have to submit to whatever they are saying, whatever type of directive they have for you. And sometimes it might not even be harmful. Like it's not like, they're requiring you to take like classes that you don't really like per se, but they probably are. because they're the ones who like you and probably not you. But a lot of people will justify this type of behavior because it's like it's not that bad. But the way it makes you feel is what determines, if it's bad or not. And if it makes you feel terrible, like if it's making you feel this way, like you're not prepared for the world, because your parents are doing you like this, and they're doing you like this for the sole purpose of controlling you, then it makes you mad. Like it really angers you, and you resent it, and you feel like you've been disadvantaged in a way. You feel like you have not been prepared for the world, or you haven't been properly prepared for things, and not because your parent just didn't know, because sometimes you can excuse that. Once you come to that realization, you're like, okay, yeah, my parent just really didn't know um how to do this. They didn't know. They couldn't teach me because they never knew. It's not like that. It's like sometimes you realize that your parent intentionally did you like this, and that really angers you. Okay. When her son graduated from college, Darla breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that now he would be on his own and would stop depending on her parents for financial support. But instead of getting a job, he managed to get even more money from her parents as an investment in a business deal of his. Although Darla hated to admit it, she realized that her son was going to milk her parents for all he could get. Why should he work when they would support him indefinitely? They had an investment in keeping him dependent, just as they had with Darla, and he was willing to pay the price. And you'll see that too. You'll see that some people are willing to accept all of this, but what ends up happening is they become toxic. They become toxic individuals themselves. And this guy, like this son of hers, is probably not going to be any type of good for any woman that he dates or marries. He's probably not going to be any good. And because they're doing it and he's okay with it, that he won't even try to break out of that. That's a sign that he'll continue this behavior. They've created a monster. Some adult children find it impossible to be independent. Autonomous adults, while they are connected in any way, um, excuse me, let me read that again. Some adult children find it impossible to be independent, autonomous adults while they are connected in any way to their parents. Try as they may, they revert back to unhealthy childlike patterns of behavior whenever they are around them. This was Darla's situation. In time, she realized that she needed to sever all ties with her parents, including buying them out of the condo, in order to break her dependency on them. So she had to do it. She had to take that independence. She had to go and pay her own bills. She had to pay her own bills in order to get in order to get her freedom and her peace, and in order to save herself. And I'm sure that that is going to speak volumes to her son. Hopefully it will, and hopefully she'll be able to give him more guidance, as she moves forward with her healing process and breaking those toxic ties. Okay. Then this is the next section, and it's titled "When It's Just Too Late." Sometimes adult children have experienced such tremendous pain at the hands of a parent that continuing the relationship is impossible. Try as they may, they cannot forgive, they cannot forget, and they cannot regain the trust necessary for a healthy, close relationship. That is me. Ding, 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 ding. That is me. Let me read it again. Sometimes adult children have experienced such tremendous pain at the hands of a parent that continuing the relationship is impossible. They try as they may, they cannot forgive. And you guys know I have tried, okay? I've made videos about this. They cannot forget. I'm not going to forget. And they cannot regain the trust necessary for a healthy, close relationship. Nope, not happening. I don't trust them. I don't trust them. And I told you I don't even want to go on the same side of town he's on when I know for sure he's going to be in town. I don't even go over there. Okay. So if that lets you know I won't even be in the vicinity of where he is, okay, then no, I don't trust him. Many adult children whose parents have sexually abused them find it impossible to continue the relationship. This is not just because it is difficult to forgive a parent for such a devastating act, but also because being around the parent is often terribly uncomfortable. Of course, if sexual abuse is still occurring, it is easy to understand why the adult child would prefer not to be in the parent's company. But many adult children feel this way even when the abuse has stopped. Why is this? The most significant reason is that when a parent sexually abuses a child, he or she betrays the child's trust. This trust is a very hard thing to ever recover. And now she's going to get into Wanda's story. Wanda said, I was so devastated when I was a child by being sexually abused by my father that I now feel edgy with him and half expect him to try something again. Even though he never does, there is just no basis for a relationship if the trust isn't there. I agree. I agree. You don't trust him, mm-mm, don't do it, sis. Nikki's experience was similar. This is what Nikki said. I found that whenever I tried to be around my father, I would experience a lot of discomfort. It was uncomfortable too. No, he was uncomfortable too. For a long time, we both tried to pretend that it had never happened, but it just didn't work. Then I thought that if we talked about it openly, it might make it easier to be around each other. But that made him feel even more uncomfortable. He was just too embarrassed. I think we both feel more comfortable not being around each other. Yeah. Sexual abuse is not the only behavior that can destroy trust permanently. Often, a parent's alcohol abuse can make it just as difficult for the child to trust a parent again. Dan's father is a recovering alcoholic with 2 years of sobriety, but Dan is still finding it hard to establish a healthy, trusting relationship with him. Even though, this is what Dan said, even though my dad is sober now, I'm still waiting for him to slip. When I was a kid, he would periodically stop drinking for a while, but he would always start again if things got tough. Now I find I watch him like a hawk, especially if he's under stress, just waiting for him to take that first drink. My dad is a really nice guy now that he isn't drinking, but he hurt me so much and in so many ways when I was a kid. He refused to become a wild man, throwing things at me if I crossed him. Oh God, I don't know why I said that. He used to become a wild man. Where did I get that word from? I don't know. I'm making it worse now. I think my eyes are getting crossed now, you guys. I'm getting sleep. Okay. He used to become a wild man, throwing things at me if I crossed him. He hit me with a lamp once, and I landed in the hospital for several weeks with a severe concussion. Now, when I'm around him, I always feel like I have to get ready to duck if he gets angry. I know he would probably never hurt me now that he is sober, but it's as if the child part of me just can't trust it. I get so nervous being around him that I'm miserable. I also find that my memories of the things that he used to do still keep coming up, and this interferes with the way I see him now. I could be sitting having a good conversation with him, only to be shaken by a flashback of when he would stand over me and beat me viciously with his fists, or of the time he used to slam me against the wall. I'm just not sure I can be around him with the tremendous fear I still feel. Wow. And this is the last paragraph of this section, you guys. And it says, you may have some reasons of your own for divorcing your parent that isn't on my list. As long as your motive is not to punish, teach a lesson, or try to change or manipulate your parent, and as long as you are operating out of love and caring for yourself, your reasons are probably good ones. The chapter that follows will help you to take the next step, that of deciding whether or not to divorce your parents. Ooh, Y'all, we're about to get into the good part. The gooder part. This book is good, ain't it? Like, yes, I said ain't it. Okay. Ain't it? Yeah, this book is really good. Um, I'm really happy that I found it. I'm gonna have to reach out to Beverly Engel. She's the licensed marriage and family therapist that wrote this book, because I still feel like it's relevant. I really feel like I want to do an updated version, with, kind of like with my experience kind of written um into these concepts that she's come up with. I think it's brilliantly written. And I'm really grateful for people like her, you know, um who will just take the chance, who will do this, who will do the work to document their experiences. Um, so that, however many years later, she wrote this in 1990, updated it in 2014, I believe it said. So, yeah, 1990 and 2014. And here we are in 2022 when I discovered this book and decided to apply its principles to my own situation and to my own life. And that is the power of writing. That is the power of writing down your experiences, because you never know. Even all these years later, when she wrote this book, you guys, I was 10 years old. 1990, I was 10 years old. And I think it's awesome that, like, who would have known that when she wrote this book when I was 10 years old, that I'd be here at 41 years old applying these same principles, and they still are relevant and still helping today. Like, we're just in chapter 3, but I really feel like I've had a life-changing experience just reading, just finding the book, first of all, because that's when things changed a lot for me. Then there was a lot of hesitancy I felt in the beginning, because I knew where God was taking me with this. I had this idea of divorcing him a few years back, when I cut him off. I was like, this is it for me. But I, thought about this, and I wrote, and I prayed, and I cried, and I just tried to educate myself, and um do a little helping with other people too, just kind of like trying to give where I can, but also trying to receive whatever I could to, to heal myself, And so I just feel really, grateful for that. And I hope that that is a testament to, to you guys. If you're thinking about writing a book about your experiences, even if it's just a short story, if it's a journal entry, you know, um, anything like that, even documenting this way, because while I am recording this, I have Otter playing, I have Otter on my other phone, and it's recording everything that I'm saying. So one day this experience is going to become a book. It's going to become something that I document for, in writing for other people, because written, this written work lives, it lives on. I mean, look at the Bible. You know what I'm saying? Look at the Bible. We're still reading about their stories. How is this any different? How is me writing about my life and my experiences and what God is telling me any different? It's not. It's just not. You know, I'm documenting just like the people in the Bible documented. What God is telling me, what God has put upon my heart, what I have experienced, what I have learned, um, and how I can help people moving forward will all be documented. It's all in the process. So I want to encourage you guys to do the same thing, to document somehow your experiences and what you've learned and what you gained and what God told you while you were going through it, before you went through it, when it was over, and how you pick that up and turn that test into a testimony, turn that trial into a triumph, and whatever little clever ways they say it. But just provide value for someone. Like that's divine purpose. That's divine purpose. Imagine how much knowledge is buried in a cemetery. Imagine that. Imagine the people who passed on, who have such a wealth of knowledge that from their experiences, but they never shared it. And I would think that it's almost like burying your talents, burying your talents in the dirt. And no one benefits. It's not going to grow up. It's not going to make a plant because it's not a seed. You didn't plant the seed. You just planted. You just buried your talents. And that's what it almost gives me when a person passes away and not shared any of their knowledge. Not, you know what I'm saying? Like, giving their knowledge and experiences to even the next generation, to a friend, even somebody. Document your experiences, you guys, and share them one day. It'll help somebody. So, okay, I'm gonna end the stream and try to give me some rest. I totally did not mean to be on here this long, but you know how y'all are. Y'all get me to talk. Y'all get me to talking, okay? Like you already know I'm gonna go, and we're gonna have a good juicy conversation. And yeah, so I can't wait till you guys actually start getting on streams with me, and we actually start having these conversations. Um, you have to let me know like how you want to do this. Like, do we need to create another space, that is more private? Um, how do we need to structure this to where you all get the most benefit? I'm still like currently working through my issues, but you know, I have reached a level of healing to where I can give back, that I can reach back and help, someone else who is trying to, to get to a place in healing. And so I just, I feel blessed by that. A lot of people go through these same experiences that I have been through, but not a lot of people can share them in the way that I can. And so I feel like this is a gift that God gave me that would be criminal almost, to not share. And so that's what I'm going to do. I love y'all, and I pray that you all have a great night. If you are listening to this in the daytime, I hope that you have a wonderful, productive day with many, many blessings, and that you do the work that is necessary to analyze these relationships, heal from toxic relationships. You guys know that I said, okay, I feel like the major health crisis today is toxic relationships. I really believe that. And so now I'm gonna just, look into it. Let's look into it. Let's call it a theory right now. And we'll look into it and see if there's any validity to that statement. But I'm guessing it is. So we'll see. But anyway, so I love y'all, and you are important to me. I need you to survive. Oh, I kind of felt that a little bit, y'all. I felt that a lot. I need you to survive. I love y'all. Bye bye for now.